You know, whenever I do this type of subject matter, it always becomes very controversial because a lot of people, for one thing, don't listen to the very end, or they take it out of context and they take pieces of it and only focus on the pieces. But it goes like this: happy, well adjusted people do not become alcoholics. They don't. Alcoholism does not come from a place of well adjustment in life. It does not come from a happy, copacetic world. It comes from anxiety and stress and depression. It comes from repressed emotions. It comes from trauma. It comes from family culture or already ADH1B and ALDH2 on a genetic level. You can have a hereditary disposition. This isn't coming from a place of joy and happiness, and that's okay. But it's important to realize, and I talk about these things because it's important to understand this as a way to treat it. You have to treat it. You have to put a person in a positive, uplifting environment, and you have to surround people with community and connection. Now, there's a wonderful video, a TEDx talk. It's on YouTube. It's by Johann Hari, made it about 10 years ago, and it's called Everything We Know About Alcohol and Alcohol Use is Completely Wrong. And he talks about community and connection, and I'll continue on the next slide. And really, the gist of Johann Hari's TEDx talk, and it's an important talk because I know a lot of people they've shown it in rehab facilities to people and in AA meetings and in smart recovery meetings and outpatient meetings. Okay, it's important to realize the origins of why someone drinks, and my wife is no exception. I mean, her drinking came from trauma in youth. It came from family culture, and definitely there was a hereditary element in her world. She had a lot of strife when she was a kid. She was very rebellious, and that rebellion, to no fault of herself, really kind of kicked back in her face, and she was kind of shunned from her family at an early age, and I think it affected her. And she went to alcohol as a band-aid and as a way to escape, I think, a lot of the emotional trauma in her life. I use her as an example, but it's across the board. It's not something that's unique. I mean, alcohol comes from anxiety, okay? And I've talked to so many rehab facility people who manage rehab facilities, and they always say the same thing. All their patients have anxiety, stress, anxiety, an overwhelming feeling of something's wrong, or it affects them physically. This is not coming from a place of well adjustment. That's okay, but now we need to look forward on how you can treat that. And a big part of why I'm talking about this, because so many families, and this is really coming from the family perspective, get very frustrated, and they are very reactionary. I mean, they're angry and frustrated. I mean, why wouldn't they be? The alcoholic in their family is wreaking havoc in the life of the alcoholic and in their family's life, economically, emotionally, psychologically. It's very damaging. It's very difficult being around a late stage alcoholic or somebody who's going down that road, because you can't reach them. It must come from them. And that person must find happiness. They must find joy. They must find it through community and to be connected to other people. And it's important to have a coach, like someone who sponsors you in an AA meeting or a recovery meeting, somebody who's a life coach, and that if you do have a problem, you have somebody to fall back on. It's so important to be around people who are in active recovery. Better to have that influence in your life than to surround yourself at a bar with people who are actively alcoholic. That's not a happy place. Bars are not bastions of happiness, okay? The bars are bastions of people hiding their emotions. It's a bastion of people hiding their life. They're running away from something. That's what bars essentially are, for certainly with people that have alcohol use disorder. And really, on a personal note, anybody that I've ever known that suffered from alcohol use disorder, they did not have a happy disposition. It was a horrible cycle that they caught themselves in. Now, recovery is a different situation. You can find your spiritual happiness, okay, your joy, whatever makes you tick. This is why I always talk about recovery is so important, to reinvent yourself. Sometimes you need to be around a different environment, different people. You have to have different behaviors. It's a behavior issue. You have to change your behavior, okay? And it has to be positive. You got to be around positive, supportive people. That's why it's so important to be supportive. Easier said than done, but for people who are actively trying to get better, that's when they need support. And that happiness can be discovered again. Life is worth living when that person realizes that they do have purpose on this earth, more than just consuming alcohol, recovering from it, and finding more alcohol, because that's no way to live, and that's nobody's happiness. Recognizing that in yourself as an alcoholic and having a family member, and recognizing that in a family member is really important as far as approaching it and getting help for that person. And real quick, Johann Hari's TEDx talk was really about an experiment. He talks about rats, and they did experiments where rats didn't get what they wanted, so they went to the alcohol, they went to the drugs, where the rats that were in an environment that was happy and copacetic, none of them even cared about the alcohol. And I mean, you can translate that into the human world, but it was a good experiment. If you're around and surrounded in a genuinely happy life and you have purpose in your life, the percentages and the probability of you becoming alcoholic go down substantially. And I really hope the gist of this video has made sense. On that note, again, Amanda's memoir is called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. It was the story of her 25 year decline with alcoholism. And a large part of the story is the last 6 or 7 years, which were especially abysmal. I'll say that. It's important. It's an important study so that you can see that in yourself or in a family member. Highly recommend it. It's selling like it's doing very well on Amazon. It's also in my Linktree ebook. You can get it outside the United States on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and the Apple website, if you can find it. Inside the United States, it's everywhere. Again, I go live Monday through Friday, right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. Also, the Linktree you can find the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. And when you're ready for my coaching program, when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, click on the link. Again, is in the Linktree. Set up a Zoom call. Takes about 45 minutes. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. Call is free. Course is definitely not. And the call is to go over the course. I'm looking for people who want to change their lives and the lives of their family. And again, thanks so much for listening.